It ends up Dark Souls 2 is the Dark Souls of video game sequels. Hey guys, it's Alex O'Neill. This is Alex Talks, where I sit down every Tuesday and Friday and discuss video games in some capacity that is appeasing to me, but for some reason some of you watch it. I don't really understand the whole give and take. I give, for some reason you guys take, you get nothing in return. I don't know. But I sit here, talk about video games, and we have a good discussion, ideally. So today I want to talk about Dark Souls 2, because I've been playing so much Dark Souls 2. I'm about, let's say about 20 hours in. It's a rough estimate. Might be a little longer, might be a little shorter. But I've been playing a lot, and I've been exclusively playing it on stream, which I mentioned last Friday in my other Alex Talks. And I really, really like Dark Souls 2. It embodies everything that I've liked about the Souls game leading up to it. And, it is so satisfying. And I'm going to talk about why Dark Souls 2 is good, in my opinion. Because it's one of those games where it's like, looking from the outside in, you're like, I don't understand why people like this game. And that's understandable. And I kind of want to shed some light on that for people who haven't played Dark Souls or Demon Souls and might want to jump in at Dark Souls 2, which is something I think is totally possible. So let me start by clearing a misconception that has kind of exploded all over the internet since Demon Souls originally came out. And Dark Souls is not the hardest video game of all time. And I don't think it's anywhere close to that. I don't know what the hardest video game of all time is, but it's not Dark Souls. Dark Souls is a very specific type of video game. It's a very intense JRPG with very, very little guidance. And I think the aspect of no guidance, it never really tells you where to go at any point. I think that's what people mistake for difficulty. And I just want to put it out there that just because you don't exactly have guidance or you don't know exactly where to go at all times in the game, or you're not led down a corridor that has only one exit and one entrance, does not mean that Dark Souls is the hardest game of all time. It makes the game harder. And don't get me wrong, Dark Souls is a very difficult franchise. That Dark Souls 1 was notoriously hard, and Dark Souls 2, in my opinion, is even harder. But I would not call it the hardest game in the world. Not even close. I would say it is one of the hardest modern games out there, and it serves the purpose of being challenging. Everything it does to you punishes you for mistakes that you make. And not a lot of games do that. Most games these days are very forgiving. Down to even like fighting games. A lot of fighting games have been streamlined to be forgiving, that if you make more mistakes, it's okay, you can still win the match. Like Persona 4 Arena, for example. Very, very simplified, streamlined fighting game and the streamline doesn't necessarily mean it's easy, but it makes it easier, I'll say. So Dark Souls, the whole shtick of Dark Souls is it's a roguelite, I think is the most appropriate term for it. When you die, all of the souls you've accumulated are lost to a bloodstain. And souls act as the currency for experience or leveling up or forging items or buying items. And all your souls are left on the place or around the place where you died last time. And you have to get there and touch your bloodstain to pick it up and recover all those souls. If you die before then, that bloodstain disappears and a new one is placed where you died the second time. And, so the cycle continues. So you can lose hours of progress or grinding if you're not spending your souls regularly or getting your bloodstain when you die. And like a bunch of things will happen, like you'll slowly have less maximum health as you die. You have to use humanity or effigies in Dark Souls 2 to stay human, which means you can participate in co-op and the like. A lot of very complicated facets of the gameplay. And the challenging thing is the game never really explains any of this. It is very much a game driven by trial and error. And that's why I like Dark Souls. And I'm going to get into that now. Dark Souls is unforgiving, punishing, and cruel even in some cases. It'll throw you into a new area with a bunch of new enemies that have entirely new movesets that you've never seen before, and possibly new status effects that you've never even experienced before, and it won't tell you anything about them. It won't tell you where to go in that area. It'll just throw you there and you have to figure it out. And I love that. I love not knowing where to go, but having tons of places to go. Exploration is the best part of Dark Souls for me. It is the quintessential aspect of that game. And Dark Souls 1 took the level format, there are 5 different levels in Demon Souls, and expanded it into just, there's an open world you can explore. And I know a lot of people didn't like that, and I don't understand why. The open world allowed them to have hidden doors or fake walls or entirely new areas that you would have to do a certain specific set of things to do to even get there. And that's awesome. That's the beauty of real open world games is secrets hidden throughout as far as the eye can see. And that's what I liked about it. But, a lot of people didn't like that. A lot of people liked the marginalized linearity of Demon Souls, where you enter a level and you just go through that level. It doesn't branch off into 5 different areas. You don't unlock shortcuts to levels from the past or something. You just kind of move forward, and there are 3 main checkpoints throughout the level. And then once you get to the 3rd one, beat the final boss of that area, you're done, and you can move on to one of the other 5 major levels. And that was fine. That worked for Demon Souls, but Dark Souls definitely feels like an evolution of that, and Dark Souls 2 even more so. I feel like I have tons of places I can go at any time. And that might, be an illusion. There might be 1 or 2 places that I can go. This place might be too hard. This place might be too easy, or I might have found everything there. But I never know until I attempt or I explore or I take the initiative to try and figure that out for myself. And of course, this is why kind of wikis ruin Demon Souls and Dark Souls. And that's why I'm excited to play Dark Souls 2, or have been excited to play Dark Souls 2. Where there's just mystery. There's nothing but mystery, and it's exciting and wonderful. Now, one other thing that I think not enough people pay attention to, but Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls and Demon Souls before it has some of the most fascinating and interesting level design and conceptual design. I don't know why I said it like that. Conceptual design ever. Like, if you look at the concept art, it's beautiful, it's sprawling, it's dark meets light, and there are layers in between of gray, between the darker areas and the lighter areas, and it's gorgeous. But it's all about how those worlds fit into one another. Like, all of these different areas are all adjacent in Dark Souls and Dark Souls 2. Like, you could have this creepy forest that spirals up into a tower or a fortress, and there's a great knight sitting atop the fortress that serves as the final boss. And the fortress has an elevator behind it that leads down into the deepest, darkest part of the earth, which leads to an entirely new area that might look nothing like the area before it. And there's lore that explains that you have to find, you have to talk to people, you have to read item descriptions. It's very classical like that, very Dungeons and Dragons-like in that aspect, which is weird considering it is very much still a JRPG, and has some of those Japanese mechanics of really, really specific and precise animations that you have to obey. You have to obey the laws of those animations and the staggering and all of that, as well as, detailed stat sheets and leveling up sheets that go with that. So Dark Souls kind of evolves that, but it is a beautiful game to look at, just because the design of the levels, not just like, placement of enemies and difficulty of design of levels, how it is for the player to traverse it, but, the concept art, the art of the levels, the physical design of just how they look is gorgeous. It's downright beautiful. And that, the best part about that is it kind of extends into the enemy and boss design. And Dark Souls 2, having played it for quite a few hours now, has some of the most incredible and well and uniquely designed bosses I've seen in video games. They're fantastic. Like, there's one early game boss that's one of the major bosses, the Last Giant. And it's a giant that looks nothing like anything I've ever seen a giant look like before. And it's gorgeous, and it's unique, and it looks like it's been a part of this world. The giant's kind of like tree-like, and he has like tree roots growing around his body. And it's fascinating, and it's just downright amazing to look at. And Dark Souls 2 definitely has if you watch the IGN, how they made Dark Souls videos, they talk about how they kind of redesigned the engine completely, for better performance, because Dark Souls 1 had a lot of performance issues, and they've like completely redesigned lighting and how lighting works, and you can now like carry a torch which acts as a light source, and it changes the levels. It's awesome. And it's those two, exploration meets incredible places to explore and creatures to find in those places. That's where Dark Souls becomes incredible for me. It is literally unlike anything out there. The monsters look unlike anything you've seen before, and it's amazing. It's unique. Dark Souls is nothing like anything you've seen before it, and I think that's awesome. That's something to be, commended for. It's really cool. It's unique. They're taking risks, and I could go on about how the co-op system is, asynchronous or simultaneously like asynchronous and synchronous, and you'll see other players just walking through your world in real time as kind of like faded phantoms that you can't interact with, but you can see them fighting other things and in their world just as shadows in your world. That's really cool. And then the bloodstains to see how other players died, and like the summoning of other players, and then laying down your summon symbol and getting summoned in someone else's world to fight together, and you get bonuses and buffs for doing that. It's really cool. Dark Souls 2 is a true evolution of Dark Souls 1. And it's streamlined, it's faster, it's more responsive, it looks better, it plays better. It's exactly what I want out of a sequel to one of the weirdest games that has come out of, or one of the weirdest franchises that's come out of this generation. And it's really excellent. It took what Dark Souls from Demon Souls did and just made it so much better, and made it so much more creative and interesting in level design and enemy design. So if you were looking to jump into the Souls series, Dark Souls 2 is actually pretty good for that. The UI and all of that is way, way better than anything has been in a Souls game before it. And I think it may be the hardest Souls game to come out yet, but it's also the most rewarding, because every challenge you beat is so goddamn satisfying that words wouldn't even do it justice. That's what I think about Dark Souls. And Dark Souls 2, kind of. It was more just about the series in general. What do you think about the Souls games? Let me know on Twitter. I'm at AlFighter27. Now, I'd like to do a Twitter question here, but I got a crazy week coming up. I'm not going to be doing an Alex Talks this Friday. I'm sorry for missing 2 weeks, or 2 episodes in 2 relatively adjacent weeks. But I'm going on a spontaneous vacation Monday through Friday. I'm actually recording this a day early. That's why I don't have a Twitter question. And because nobody tweets me questions, please tweet me questions. I'd love to answer them. So there won't be an Alex Talks this Friday. The podcast might be delayed this week. Hopefully this comes out on time on Tuesday. If not, I'm sorry ahead of time. There's nothing I can really do about it. I've got a lot of stuff going on Monday, which is when I normally edit these. But regardless, normally this Alex Talks thing that I do comes out every Tuesday and Friday, so you can watch it then. And while you're at it, go to irrationalpassions.com and check that shit out, because it's awesome. We have amazing writers that write amazing pieces and reviews. So check that out. And until then, give me a follow on Twitter, give us a like here, subscribe for more of this content, and I will talk to you guys next Tuesday. Peace.